Kia ora koutou, ko Mao te monga, ko Awanui te moana, ko Taronga moana te rohi, ko Takitimo te waka, ko Ngāti Ranganui te iwi, ko Haurani te marae no Minia, Okutipuna, kei te noho o ke whanganui atara, ko Ben Creet toka ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Hey everybody, I'm Creet. I'm from the National Cybersecurity Centre. I'm definitely not an accountant. I am shit with numbers. I am a word nerd. I said I'm Ben Creet, or Creature online. I am the acting unit manager of the Incident Triage and Response Group at National Cybersecurity Centre, and as it says on my bio, when I'm not pretending to manage, I'm a principal advisor in what is functionally our governance risk compliance or governance risk strategy shop, regulatory and advisory branch. I'm also the vice chair of the New Zealand Internet Task Force, I'm a board member of the ISANS, and this is agency 6 for me in the public service. I'm a career public servant. And I'm here from the NCSC. Who's that? Hopefully people kind of know who we are. But I think the kind of the really cool and profound change we've had quite recently is NCSC and CERT New Zealand have kind of become one. As of 31 August, NCSC and CERT integrated together. The decision and the transfer to do that happened really quickly, right? So I think the decision was made maybe in the last week of June, with the decision that CERT would transfer from MB over to hang with us on the 31st of August. That's not a lot of time to make sure everyone still gets paid, or their annual leave is transferred, everyone's IT contract still works, all the contractors, all the systems, everything. It was a mad dash, which is why you probably haven't heard too much from us about that transfer yet. But I think that the key thing that I really wanted to kind of say here at a community conference is having this single operational agency is going to be really beneficial. We're a good 200 plus strong cybersecurity professionals now, and we have the collective job and mission of looking after the whole country. And that is a thing that at NCSC we're really, really up for. This isn't about subsuming CERT. It's about taking the strengths and the best things of CERT and NCSC and making them, my thing is I keep saying, I want 1 + 1 to equal 2.7. I'll take 2.3, 1.8 is not good enough. So yeah, we're taking the time. You're going to hear more about it in the future, but I just wanted to get that up there and get that out of the way, and I just really like that meme. At the NCSC, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is our standard kind of strategic focus. I guess the main thing I wanted to say is this is like how we think about, or have in the past thought about our services. I'm really hopeful that our next strategy, which we're working on at the moment, will use the framework I'm about to talk to you all about now. We're also a system leader, so our chief executive has the distinct privilege of being the government's CISO. So we kind of have a leadership and a responsibility for making sure the whole public service does things well, is nice and secure, and we do that a lot by working with our colleagues who do digital leadership and data leadership, which is all like, cool story, Ben. On to the actual talk. So cybersecurity framework. We published in February this year in public beta the NCSC's cybersecurity framework. It's available on our website. And we did that, and we published it for a couple of reasons, right? And I think before I get to those, there's always that fundamental question that does still come up. Why have a cybersecurity framework? Why do orgs need one, right? I've got the NZISM or 153, or I'm an ISO shop. Why do I need a framework, right? And basically, frameworks are really important for helping us organize and consider all of our cybersecurity work. They're about managing, talking about the cybersecurity program and the work of your security team. It helps us report up, talk to non-security people, and also helps make sure that you're not getting too blinkered and focused on one particular project and forgetting about the rest of security, right? So also a framework complements but does not replace your risk management process or the actual work of doing cybersecurity. And one of the reasons we did this and we published this is there's a clear expectation under the protective security requirements for government that every public service department must have a cybersecurity framework. It's one of the questions that gets asked every year. As cybersecurity leaders for government, we decided we wanted to publish ours to demonstrate it and kind of say, well, this is how we do this. But it turns out that our one was a bit old as well. So we thought, well, let's, okay, if we're going to do this and we're going to publish it, let's think about it. What do we want to build? And so we went through, in my area, we talk about adopt, adapt, or build. And building something is always the third option. You've got to go through, is there something we can adopt? Is there something we can adapt? And we spend a lot of time, I'll point that out later, quite a bit of time thinking about this and trying to figure out how to build a good framework that we could publish and be proud of. And I am going to speed run you through it, okay? This is not a comprehensive overview of it. It's on the website. It is available for everyone, right? So, as I said, it's fundamentally, it's our way of organising our thinking and all our security activities. It's designed to give all of our people, especially, we have communication specialists, we're in a lot of growth. When I joined, I was in a team of 6, and now that's a team of 15, and I'm not even in it anymore. How do we get a good common understanding for all of our people? That's kind of the main thing for us, right? And here it is. So for those of you who are framework nerds, this might seem a bit familiar. So we have 5 functions. We have guide and govern, which sits in the middle of how your organisation does security. We have identify and understand, prevent and protect, detect and contain, and respond and recover. Each of these 5 functions has a kind of introductory sentence or 2, and then 5 security objectives. Guide and govern is fundamentally all about how you both govern security through having good governance processes, understanding your security investment, having good, robust assurance processes, but also it's fundamentally about culture and guidance and not expecting everyone in your organisation to be a security professional. What do they need to know? What do they need to do? Identify and understand is actually one of the 2 functions that really made us decide to use 2 words. So identify is, for those who use NIST and things like that, it's asset discovery and identifying your assets and your data sets and classifying things. But it's also actually fundamentally about understanding the context you're in. What is your organisation actually trying to achieve? How does security help that? Right? What is our risk appetite as an organisation? What are people willing to do? What is the threat model of the organisation? What threats are we facing? We also understanding supply chains, and look, as a treaty partner, we felt it was really important to put in there as well, understanding an organisation who's using this framework, understanding what Māori data we hold, and actually what treaty partners' security expectations are in relation to that Māori data. Now that is, I'll be really clear, that's currently still aspirational. What is Māori data is not a solved problem in government. It is a multi-year piece of work that many people, including us, are working on. Prevent and protect. This is a security conference. This is motherhood and apple pie. Okay, this is all of your preventative controls. It's your patching. It's your updating. It's your separation, your segmentation. It's trying to do security by design, right? It's also, there is a separate objective here, and actually protecting Māori data in line with treaty partners' expectations. We should try and establish what they are and then meet them. Crazy idea. An example of prevent and protect is malware friendly. Multi-factor authentication. Too many MFs. Detect and contain. Again, the other one. This and identify and understand where we really decided we didn't want to use one word for each of these functions. And containment was quite important to us, also because I did this project with a security architect, and he was like, we talk about architecture and containment and separation and containment. So detection, monitoring, making sure your security controls actually work, that you can isolate and contain things, that you have good trust boundaries, all that kind of stuff. And so an example here that I've given, and this is, sorry, a shameless plug, malware-free networks, which we offer. For us, that is a containment tool. We know an IOC and a piece of badness that's currently happening in the country, and through our partners, we ship it out into subscribing organizations to disrupt. It is about stopping badness spread. So it's a containment tool. Finally, respond and recover, right? So the thing here is fundamentally, having an incident response plan, testing the incident response plan, getting it so you're confident in it, you know it works. It's flexible, right? So like the example I often give in that is a lot of organizations will spend a lot of time really refining down their incident response plan to, say, deal with ransomware. And it's really good at that. That's cool. But when you get DDoSed, a ransomware-specific incident response plan might not help you as well, right? Who are your partners? Who do you need to work with? And focusing on likely events is the kind of thing we say. And that's, admittedly, like we're the National Cybersecurity Centre. We deal with a wide variety of threat actors, and you can often end up in response plans and risk assessments, what we kind of call movie plot security thinking, and that's not always the most useful thing to be focusing on in your response plan. So, for those of you who are security framework people and who've used NIST, my framework will look quite similar to you. That is on purpose. I said at the beginning, we're all about adopting or adapting. And fundamentally what we've done is adapted the NIST framework for the New Zealand context. And so at the National Cybersecurity Centre, one of the things we've seen a lot is that a lot of organisations don't have a lot of good security governance and clear understanding of security leadership. We've been working with organisations for a decade on this, right? And so we really wanted to pull all of that culture and governance out of the identify function. And because we wanted to keep 5, we kind of smooshed respond and recover together. Technical term. I will also acknowledge that for those of you who are following along with NIST, they're currently working on what they call their journey to 2.0. So they're refreshing and reviewing their framework, and they're actually going to have 6 functions, and the 6th one, which is governance. So they've heard as well that they need to pull governance out of identify. We did get there first though. Hashtag just saying. And we did it kind of, we spoke to them quite well. One of the cool things, we're a national standard setter as well. And so we talked to NIST when they did this review. My colleague Richard went over to America and had really good discussions with them as well, like why we agree that they should be doing governance, where we arrived, how we got there, and why, kind of gave them a bit of comfort that absolutely it's the right thing to do. That's my story. And in future interviews, I'm sticking to it. The framework at the moment is in public beta, right? So a question I do get a bit is people kind of saying, well, why would I use this? It's in public beta, it's likely to change. The reason we put it out in public beta is fundamentally because this is quite new for us, right? And so we were like, I don't really want to just do the thing where we just publish a bunch of stuff and say, you got to do it now. Or, as I like to call it, updating the NZISM. I'm on the team that updates the NZISM. I can make that joke. But we thought about it and we thought, no, let's put it out in public beta. Let's test it for about a year. Let's just kind of try and thrash it, use it in anger ourselves, talk to other organisations that are using it, and see how it might need to change. And so I think the functions are pretty settled. We're not going to be changing those. But those security objectives, those 5 security objectives that sit under them, the words we're using, the focuses we have, that could change, and that's going to change based on our use, feedback from other people who are using it, and also input from our assurance activities that we do across the public service. Also, we're really keen to try and understand and integrate te ao Māori and mataranga Māori concepts. So what's our analogy for the framework? So like in Māori health, there's Mason's jury, whare hora, so like a house is the analogy in health, and that is often pointed to. But like in digital and data, a lot of the agencies and thinking is actually around a waka holder, so your dual-hulled house waka that people use to travel from Hawaii to New Zealand, because security in digital world, it is dynamic. There are things pushing against you. You are moving through space and time. All those kinds of fun thinking. Our tentative plan is to move from the beta into version 1 this financial year, which for the public service ends 30 June. So, I guess sometime in June. Also thinking about how to build a maturity model, but I just would say that's not a small thing, right? Like, one of the things we heard when we did consultation on the framework, because we talked to the public service, we talked to the security companies that are on the information security panel, we talked to the managed service providers. Here's what we're thinking, here's what we're thinking of doing, what do you all think, is there anything we can improve? A lot of people said, it's good, but we really need a maturity model. And then they'd also say, but I don't want another maturity model, right? Like there's too many already. So we're thinking really carefully about how we do that, what we might need to do in terms of working with the protective security requirements team, about how we might adapt or update that maturity model. So there's discussions ongoing, so if anyone's kind of like, Ben, I really think you need a maturity model, I totally hear you, but that is not a small job, right? I thought, I just kind of also say, like, what's it, like, one of my colleagues, when I said I was doing this talk, was like, you should give some reflections. What's it like to build a framework? And in a word, hard. Okay, it is not easy work. Building a framework, or even just adapting a framework, it was a real privilege. Like, one of the cool things about working at the National Cybersecurity Centre is I do get to protect a bit of my time and kind of look at what's needed, right? So there's the firefighting at the moment of incidents, there's NZISM updates, there's briefings to ministers, there's working with sectors and all sorts of things on particular issues, but just protecting that little bit of time. What's the thing that's going to help set us up to do even more and be even better in the future? What does the country need? And my colleague Richard Bain and I landed on this framework, and it was really cool, but it was over a year's work. Okay? Like, it did take us longer than we thought. It was harder to do than we thought. Which I like, kind of peak white man energy, right? Like, build a framework, smash it out, smoke me a kipper, I'll be back before breakfast, right? Like, no, it's quite hard. There's a lot of existential thinking and stress involved. But yeah, that's the framework. If you don't have one, please feel free to use it. But I think what I would say is the thing I wanted to bring this up for is, like, some people might be in the audience and go like, oh, cool, build a framework, that sounds like fun. Like, please don't. It actually took a really long amount of time, and if I was on an operational security team, like, that would just be would have been a misuse of my time, right? Like, there's so much to do in security. I would say, like, if you don't have a framework, just choose one. You can use ours. I won't be sad or salty if you choose not to, right? We are using it though, right? And so we use it across pretty much everything we do. We're kind of, it's only been out since February, so we're kind of working through it, right? So first and foremost, it does organise our thinking and provide a common language for us. It's quite cool, like, when I get to hear, like, whether it's Lisa Fong or one of the general managers kind of using the framework to shape their thinking in a discussion. I'm like, This is what I really wanted. Sorry, I am a nerd. But it's also, it's that how do we consistently communicate what being cyber secure and cyber resilient actually means? Like, how broad is it when we're talking to, people who are CISOs and CTOs and CFOs, who are security governors for 4 hours a month or an hour a month, and they take their hat off and they're back to being a manager, right? Like, how do we talk to them and help make things easy for them? We have, in terms of structuring our advice, one of the things we've just started to do is on our post-incident analysis reports. So if you ever have the pleasure and fortune of working with us in incident response, at the end of an incident, we give victims here's what we found, here's what we did, here's our recommendations. And so for our recommendations, we're starting to structure those according to the 5 functions. Like, you should have some security governance. Some logging would be nice. The usual normal stuff that happens when you work with organizations. And probably the other example I would use is in this year's cyber threat report, which came out last month during Cyber Smart Week. We kind of highlighted, I think it was four of the most common ways that incidents we dealt with happened. What was the cause of them? And for each of those, we have a managing the threat section, and I've just kind of highlighted them there. There's 3 recommendations for each of them, and we've broken those up to make sure there's not just a bunch of preventative security control recommendations that might not work for people. So we're trying to what's the identifier, what's the prevent, the detection, what can we do to give people some ways of doing things. So yeah, that's how we're using it. I did say in the talk, how you can use it, right? So in the bio, cool. Well, so you can adopt it or you can adapt it. So if your organization doesn't have a framework, please feel free to use this one. If you don't like a part of it, or it's not relevant to your organization, great, adapt it. Okay? We've released the framework, Creative Commons, attribution, commercial licensing, right? So anyone can take any part of this framework and do whatever they want with it. You can change it, we have no copyright. Change it, you can adopt it, you can build it into your services, you can sell things and widgets and structure stuff and make money off it, and that's great. Please do. So that was a thing I pushed really hard for. I really wanted this to be available for people to use and for there to be no Crown copyright considerations. It was definitely scratched. There was some head scratching from the lawyers and the comms team. But why? Reasons. The Internet NZ advocate in me coming out. Creative Commons, it's brilliant. So with the last bit of time I have left, I thought I'd just go through a couple examples of how you could choose to use this framework. So let's say you're trying to agree or set really high-level priorities with the board or security governance or whoever, right? So you could be well, I've got 5 key priority initiatives to make sure we have good breadth of security in the organization, right? We've got a bunch of developers. We're going to focus on secure development training, possibly with a sponsor from here, who knows? To make sure that the applications we build and the things we do are secure. We're going to build an organizational threat model. We don't have one. Our risk assessments are too inconsistent. We need to get consistency of threat, for consistency of risk assessment, for consistency of control. We're going to MFA all the things, because we should. For detect and contain, maybe the priority is, actually we just want to really reassess and look at all those trust boundaries in our network, which we totally have, right? It's not just flat domain trust. Our internal boundaries, what are they? How well are they instrumented? Are we monitoring them well? What's going on? And then finally, refreshing the incident response plan, always a good one to do. And then some stretch goals. But once you've done those, because everyone likes to be able to kind of, under-promise, over-deliver, smashed it out. Or, for example, maybe around security investment. Let's say, hypothetically, you're in an organization, this will sound unfamiliar to know everyone. This is not at all what happens. you're an organization that spends like 90% of your security dollars actually on assurance processes, right? And pen tests. You spend a lot of time on certification and pen tests, and is this right? Am I doing all the things? Yep, how are we doing security? Okay, great. Yes, you can do that, authority operate. But is that like knowing your security and knowing your state of security isn't necessarily improving your security. So maybe you want to change that. How could you talk about it? Well, you could use the framework and our cybersecurity investment guidance. Shameless plug. And maybe you could say, actually, we're going to eat some risk on assurance because we're eating a bunch of risk. I'm going to move some of that risk tolerance to here because we want to actually do our asset discovery. We've got an EDR deployment project which just hasn't got around to. Let's finish that. We want to put in place a minimum viable detection capability, and we need an IR plan that's reviewed, and we actually want someone on retainer if things go bad, right? So like an example of how you could restructure those dollars. So yeah, that's kind of me. The framework is for you. Please feel free to use it. We built one so you don't have to. Please feel free to use it, adapt it as you see fit. Tell us what you think about it. It's there. And here is just a whole bunch of emails, because we love email. So if you want to give us some feedback on the framework, gciso@, if you have any general inquiries or you want to sign up to our alerts and advisories, which you definitely should do, it's info@. If you need to report an incident to us, we are here to help. We have a team of amazing incident coordinators and responders who can help you when you're having your worst day of the year. Like, we generally help someone almost every day. So, you know, like, you're having your worst day, it's Tuesday for us. We'll help you through it. It's fine, right? Incidents @ or if you do want to sign up to Malware-Free Networks, which you totally should if you're not on it already, honestly, it blocks a lot of bad stuff. Services at NCSC. 2 minutes under. Cool. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the con.
I am a super genius.